I would like to move on to the next session, if that's okay, because we have a very special lady waiting to speak with us. Her name is Roelie Post. I've been lucky enough to meet her in real life when I went in October last year to complain about the Hague Convention, international family laws. And Roelie is going to tell us about her experiences working as an official tasked with child protection portfolio for the European Commission. Roelie, are you here? Are you able to get your mic working? Is everything okay?
Hello?
Yes.
It seems to work.
Great. Do you want me to stop presenting so that we can see you? Do you want me to take away the...
No, I don't know which shape you want it, if you want to question me some things or whether I didn't have time, unfortunately, to prepare because I had a kind of a very busy and emotionally busy week. So
it's really, really okay. This is the thing. This is an unconference. It's okay for us to come as we are and just do the best we can. I would also have loved to be more prepared than I am, but perfectionism is the enemy of getting things done, and I think it's useful just to show up. So, yeah.
Correct.
Do you want to come onto the video so that we can see you? Or...
Yes, I don't know how.
Nicola, if you wouldn't mind popping your question into the chat, hi Roelie, hi, or saving it until Roelie sort of finishes. Or did you want to, Roelie, what did you want to do? Did you want to sort of start off with a little, or shall we make it a question and answer thing?
Yes, I can briefly present myself perhaps, and then you can just shoot or ask me whatever you want. I'm based in Brussels. My nationality is Dutch, so English is not my mother tongue. But I worked since early 80s in the European Commission in Brussels, where I'm also based. And in the end of the 90s, beginning 2000, I became responsible for what we called the Romanian Children File, which was the European Commission was going to help Romania during their accession process to the EU to improve their child protection, to close up this what they called orphanages, but are children homes in Romania, and to create a modern child protection. That was the idea. While doing that, Romania had just started a new reform of their adoption business, I could say, in fact, because they had adhered to the Hague Adoption Convention. Well, very long story short, that convention professionalizes and modernizes and the adoption business with the agencies and the rules, and it changes, in fact, which we will get into later, it changes the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. So I got into this. I was a civil servant, and we can only work for the European Commission. We could only work on the basis of what we call the acquis communautaire, which is the EU legal basis. So our work was those 5 years, we were working on the basis of the UN Convention of the Rights of the Child, because the Hague Adoption Convention was not a legal basis for the EU. It's a completely different animal, a legal animal. And long story short, we were able to reform Romania with the help, even at the agreement of all the EU member states. But a terrible lobby was active all the time. It's mainly made up of NGOs who are supported, nevertheless, being non-state organization. Very often they're supported, they're paid by the state anyway, so it's a kind of a double function. Anyways, these adoption lobby groups were able to get to win the affair, in the sense that after 5 years, I was pushed out of the European Commission. I was able to work for 6 years for the Organization Against Child Trafficking, which was set up to host me, in fact, to park me, because the European Commission didn't want to fire me, and the good people wanted me to continue to work on children's rights. And And then in a totally incredible and unheard move, they suggested me to set up an NGO myself and to work for that. We didn't get any funding for that though, so that became an interesting battle for my personal finances. Anyway, long story short, in 2014, so this all played, the battle to reform Romania was from 1999 to 2005. 2007, I published a book about it, Romania for Export Only, the untold story of the Romanian orphans, which they weren't. Then the NGO was set up and I worked for that until 2014, when the European Commission forced me back into their offices because they finished off my secondment contract. And then they tried to kill me like they do with other whistleblowers. And so in 2016, I became formally a whistleblower and was treated like a whistleblower, meaning I got fired, my finances were put on, I mean, all the payments were stopped. I was in a very difficult situation for years. Luckily, the Dutch parliament stood behind me and I got some kind of a arrangement so that I can live again, but that should not be the subject of the discussion. The subject of the discussion is that this adoption lobby is all over the world and is focusing on the EU in trying to get inter-country adoption an international business which can affect all our children, in the sense that the way it's going now, the way they're pushing, they want also children from the UK, from France, from the Netherlands to become available for inter-country adoption. This may sound like, well, that will never happen. Well, I thought that many, many years ago, or many other people thought so, and now we're actually getting very close. So that's the warning I want to bring here, that the Hague Adoption Convention, which contravenes the normal children's rights, which almost all the countries in the world adhere to, except the United States of America. So this is a battle which we have to be aware of, and I think we should stand up against. This is actually how I met Natalie in October in the Hague, and we talked about the several Hague conventions and the weird animals they are, because they actually go against the UNCRC, which is the highest level of rights and should not legally be possible. So I thank you for having me here. I understand it's a bit of an outlier in the family court discussion, but it's all goes about the same thing. It's about what they're trying to do is getting as much children into the system. It's worth a lot of money. It's an international business now where international operators are running child protection in our countries, and so I hope that this can be the beginning of more involvement with UK and with international. One day perhaps we can all join up, because I think many things are going in the same direction, because this NGO world of adoption lobby and child protection lobby, and I'm saying that in brackets because it's actually a lobby to get more and more child protection, and the more child protection like we're having now, it means more children are dragged out of their families. So I hope this is not too chaotic. You were allowed to ask me whatever question, of course, and
I mean, crikey, that is terrible. I don't know what to say.
No, good. At least, okay, good.
I feel things are bad enough when we had AI, and we've got AI coming in, and this is going to physically take away all parents' rights. This is going to be even more serious, because it's obvious now why it's being done. It's just to physically place more children with more adopted families. That's unbelievable. What are they thinking?
Yes, and of course, when you get to the international level, all gets even more complicated, because it's more difficult for the parents to fight because children are in another country. When the children have grown up, it's more difficult to get them back because they actually may no longer speak their language. So we're creating it's so many facets which are so complicated, and it's interesting right at this moment, or over the since Romania closed down, because the European Union, when I was there, and it wasn't only me, it was just all the whole organization took the position, children's rights, UNCRC, respect that. And not the Hague and all the other mess. Since then, the adoptions, inter-country adoptions, have gone down with approximately more than 85%. So most adoption agencies are actually almost dying. But and at the same time, now many adult adoptees in many countries are standing up, and there are investigations everywhere. So adoptions are closing in Denmark and in Norway now. Sweden is thinking about it. The Dutch are reforming the system. Come back to that later. The Belgians are discussing: are we closing? Are we not? In France, an investigative report will get out this week. So the system is crumbling, but at the same time, I'm seeing really all the proof that the underground international interference into the systems is just building things up again, and they may just get it. The Netherlands has just reopened inter-country adoptions after 4 years of almost closure, and from the 8 countries they're going to adopt from, 3 of those countries are actually EU member states. It's Portugal, Hungary, and Bulgaria. EU member states should not be countries who send away their children, because inter-country adoption, according to the UNCRC, is a last resort which may be used if there's really no option at all to raise the child in country. Now, one can never say that in an EU country there's no way to raise a child. And recently, thanks to Natalie, in fact, she sent me an interview with an American lawyer recently, who said exactly everything I thought for a long time but didn't dare to say out loud, because it sounded like a conspiracy theory. And it sounded too weird to believe. But this lawyer, who was an adoption lawyer, who I knew through my work at the time, she spelled it out. She said, when the UNCRC came out, the US didn't like it. The US adoption agencies didn't like it because it almost made inter-country adoption impossible. So that's why the adoption agency and the lawyers involved decided to draft a new convention, the Hague Convention, which changes the interpretation of the UNCRC and makes adoption a normal, inter-country adoption also, a normal measure of child protection. And it allows and it supports that child protection will be limited by law to a certain amount of time, so that the authorities need to make children adoptable after a certain moment, or cut parental rights, like they just did in the Netherlands, where parental rights can be cut after 1 year. It's not exactly parental rights cut, but after a year, the child protection services don't have to work towards reintegration into the original family anymore, which of course is where then everything goes wrong, if you stop working on integration and on improving the situation.
But hasn't all this started but in place by all of this export of children to various different countries already? I mean, the 500,000 children that have been abducted from the UK and placed in Northern Ireland is questionable. If they're going to do this en masse to children in other states, is this not the forerunner to actually do this? Because they've managed to achieve this without any hesitation or any problems from the parents, and they've managed to ignore them completely. Aren't they going to just do the same thing in Europe, and they will basically not interface with the parents, and we become into a system where they're using AI to decide whether you are a fit parent or not, and then all of a sudden you are going to be getting a thing in the post to say, we've taken your children from you and you can't come and collect them from the school because they're now with another family.
Exactly.
Yes. What we're going to do.
Yeah, but we have a scandal in the Netherlands since a few years where, indeed, on the basis of data of AI, the tax office selected families which they thought were corrupt, and they selected families with a foreign name. And so they took back, they punished them with it's a very complex situation, which I won't explain. But the result is that at least 1,000 children, but likely many more, have been taken into care for the wrong reasons, for financial issues, and those children can no longer be found. And that's the worrying thing now, that the parents are, so they're talking about compensation, etc., but the children can no longer be found. And now people are getting extremely worried and asking, where are those children? And why are the foster families not standing up? And why can the children not be found? And many people wonder if they are actually already abroad.
Well, we have this problem in the UK. We have all these immigrants coming in, and nobody knows where half of the children have disappeared to. Now, they must have some tracking of where these people have gone and the children have gone. Yeah. You know, they can't just disappear into the country.
Yeah.
Can I ask Tina if she'd like to speak? She's got her hand up.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hiya. Sorry, I've been cut off a couple of times. I think my network or something, but I do apologise for that. Right, what it is, my friend, recently, her child has been put on a child protection register, and she's been accused of F11, and it's happening actually in North Wales. It all started because she was reaching out for support from teams around the family. So she was with this lady. So this lady wasn't actually helping her. What the lady was doing, she was under surveillance there to spy on her. And then as the year went on, she reported her, put a report in to social services. Now, she had them banging on the door, two of them, very intimidating. She did record them, and they were like telling her that calling her a liar and we can't really see the child. And basically, they're trying to use her mental health, medical records against her. They brought up her past about her past to do with, because she was in an abusive relationship, but she's not with him now. And it was like, you know what I mean? It's been horrendous. She got a PLO now. They put a PLO on her. And the little one's only 7 years old. And, you know, he's got anxiety. He doesn't want to go to school. So she homeschooled him, but she gets teachers in. But my concern is here, they set her up to fail. And they got psychologists now to do assessments working for the LA.
So what is a PLO?
It's a pre-proceedings. They threatened her with legal action because they would want, is it 50% of the PR rights of the child? Because she's complying, she's cooperating. She's doing a parent assessment with them, but she's also going to go independent. But because she doesn't want to consent to him, and the doctor as well, he's changed his attitude as well. And it's like 1 minute, he's saying, oh, I don't think the child has got neurodevelopment issues, which he can't do that because he's a doctor, not a psychologist. But they threatened her with legal action. So she's got a meeting now, a PLO meeting every 6 weeks, and a group meeting. And if she's not complying to what they want, then they'll take her to court.
Yeah. It seems like there's a lot of problems in Wales, as far as I understand. I just sort of wanted to sort of tie back a little bit to something that we mentioned in the last meeting with Julia, about people talking about, making complaints. And Luba mentioned Human Rights Watch. And the title of this session is about the influence of NGOs and lobbies. And what I would be really interested for Roelie to help us understand is, first of all, do we think that we can have much optimism about what the Human Rights Watch might do, and what is Roelie's experience? What is your experience, Roelie, with NGOs and how they were involved in actually undermining the Convention on the Rights of the Child in Europe?
Yes, yes, thanks. That's a very good issue. Well, I entered this field pretty normal and straightforward, and I thought also that by talking to people we could all be in a very quick agreement. So we started as the European Commission in trying to build, of course, together with all the partners in Romania, with the Romanians, of course, but also with UNICEF and other big NGOs like Save the Children, like whatever you name them, to get to an agreement. But they were, it was a very interesting, it was very, looking back now after almost 25 years and knowing what's happened since, UNICEF always was represented by one person from the UK, by the way, Nigel Cantwell, and he was very much at the hands of the Hague Convention. It was absolutely clear that there was no way to get to an agreement, and we couldn't even talk. I mean, he didn't even want to talk. Well, he was known as a very critical person towards the system, and I was looking forward to meet him to find a possible partner in this battle against this adoption mob. But we couldn't ever get to an agreement, and only a few months ago, an interview was published with him, in which he, against his wishes, I must admit, but sometimes it's like that, and in which he admitted that he played for UNICEF, that they played, how did he say that now? I've forgotten the term, but realpolitik. So they weren't following children's rights, but they were working in the interest of a certain country. And that certain country is very clearly for UNICEF is the United States. So the US is the only country who didn't ratify the UNCRC, but the director of UNICEF since its beginning is always an American. So I think that's rather telling, right? And so these NGOs then are sort of influenced top down by UNICEF to all support the Hague Convention, and whoever tries to do something else will be cut off from funding. I mean, most of the funding comes from, they always say it's private funding. Well, no, a lot of funding for UNICEF and others comes actually from the European Commission and from national governments. So once you go against the flow, they risk their funding, and so they all shut up. I know that one of the biggest adoption lobbyists in the U.S. Senate was on the committee that decided about funding for UNICEF. So that's how they, at a certain point, got them into their direction. You see, and so this is very serious, and from what I've seen in the last 25 years is that the U.S. They know they're not very popular on certain areas, so they like to move through other countries. So they often use UK NGOs as a sort of a Trojan horse, to enter the EU, which has now become a little bit more complicated since the UK is no longer in the EU. But I don't think they're really very much impressed by that. But they played a big role, especially Hope and Homes for Children, and also Lumos from J.K. Rowling, where I'm not sure how much he is aware about what's going on. But all these organizations are supporting the Hague and therefore the adoption lobby, and are therefore agreeing that adoption is a child protection measure, and also inter-country adoption is a child protection measure. So it's really dangerous.
I mean, it is the same situation that we had with the charities that were involved in problems with children's. Is this the type of NGO you're talking about that has or is using UK companies to take predators out to these foreign countries?
Yes, and also because the UK has quite an active adoption system in country. They were never very active in inter-country adoption, although that has changed a few years ago. They became more active, and now I just saw that there's this organization Euradopt, which is the umbrella organization of the biggest adoption agencies in Europe. And I just noticed that now Quorum, which is the main UK international adoption agency, is organizing the Euroadopt conference this year in April in the UK. And so they're in the lead now. And that would be very interesting if people could participate there, or at least have a look what's going on. And so they're taking a much more important role now, recently. And it's interesting that the new director of Quorum is actually a child rights expert who was advising Romania early 2000 for DFID, for the UK organization. And I got into a terrible fight with her about intercountry adoption and whether or not foster care is acceptable, or if children should be always adoptable. She's now the head of the Quorum. Do you say Quorum? I don't know how to explain.
Who was that?
Caroline Hamilton. And I was rather surprised now all of a sudden to see her there. I thought, oh, we meet again after 24 years. Voilà. So they're now rather important, and they're showing their face very clearly. And yes, in April, it's on the website of Euroadopt, and it's interesting to see that almost all the organizations on Euroadopt, they're all implicated in huge child trafficking scandals. But somehow it's unbeatable. It's the forces behind it is not only it's NGOs. Now NGOs also, yes, that's a very important point. In fact, NGOs are very much supported by the royalties in Europe. And so in the Romanian story, I really all the time it was a royal family involved. So Hope and Homes was supported by Princess Marina Sturza, a Romanian princess. The royal family was often involved in all kinds of charities, of course, but also in the adoption issue. And it's in the Netherlands now they're going to set up a new adoption agency because the rest has to be abolished because they were all involved in wrongdoings. And the new organization is now registered at the address of the former palace of the Queen of the Netherlands, which is no longer a palace, but as a symbolism, it's rather kind of enormous that such a controversial issue, such a what did I say?
You said it's fine, controversial.
Yeah, voilà. That they put it now at the address of the former queen, which is a symbol, and we see it everywhere. That the royal family is also somehow are involved in are supporting this. And one can say, for a long time, I said, well, perhaps they don't know what's behind it, and it sounds very nice that you rescue children from poverty-stricken countries and you bring them to nice families. But over the last 10, 15 years, there's been so much in the news about all the scandals, and it's very difficult to imagine that the royal families wouldn't know that.
And for us, okay, I'm sorry, Martin. For us, please, we should try to be maybe mindful about putting our hands up if possible. In the UK, we have got the Epstein papers further implicating Prince Andrew and other people from the British establishment, but there'll be a fair few people on this call who will share your hesitation about the involvement of royal families. Roelie. Martin, go ahead. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to ask, I'm getting a two-handed approach from a local authority and the NSPCC, and I wonder what your thoughts on that was, because it's pretty peculiar that they are seeming to be asking me questions which the local authority are not answering. I just wondered if you had any thought on why they were doing that.
Do you know anything about the NSPCC, Roelie?
No, I am not so much into the UK system that I just only know the international kind of. No, I can't reply to that, unfortunately.
Okay. Tina, is that a legacy hand that you've got up, or do you want to ask another question? Christina, did you want to speak? Maria, I think you put your hand down, but then up again. Would you like to?
I wasn't sure if there was time for a question. Hello, everyone. My name is Maria, and Roelie, I'm trying to connect to you now on LinkedIn to follow up. My question in the international context: I've been following REM Al-Salam with UN attempts to collect data on the custody. And at the same time, there is an independent commissioner on the national level in Great Britain since 2019. She is also trying to connect the domestic abuse to the child custody cases. Her name is Nicola Jacobs. And at the same time, I hear you talking about the European Parliament level as well. So I wonder, with all these data collection efforts, if we are to create this change ourselves, how do we not expose ourselves to too much confrontation? Because UN is collecting data from cases and from stories. And nationally, I'm sure countries like France, recently they tried to collect data as well on the scale of child sexual abuse. And I think now they're trying to suppress the initiative because it had too much success. And in UK as well, I tried to approach Nicola Jacobs. How is the data strategy coming along? And
I'm waiting for her to come.
Sorry? Yeah, I got on mute. Yeah. And I tried to approach Nicola Jacobs in UK to understand is her data vision, data strategy on collecting and monitoring the family court data. Is it somehow aligned with UN, or it's completely national? So what's the right approach to put all of these various efforts under the right perspective for us to be constructive when we are thinking how to approach the design of the change? Because obviously to create a change, one would need a rather comprehensive data collection, but at the same time to minimize the opposition from all the players out there who manipulate data sometimes in their own interest and for the sake of their own agenda. So what's the right view of it in the international context, in your opinion?
You may be on mute, Roelie, I'm sorry.
Yes, I was on mute, sorry. Yes, I'm not sure I understood everything correctly because it wasn't always clear. But about data collection, it's true that, of course, that the other side also is doing, it wants data collection. Since 10 years, the adoption lobby and the adoption agencies behind it, they're promoting the idea that all the children in care need to be registered and counted. We have to know who are the children, where are the children, and they're creating data tracking systems so that they can see which child is in care and when it should become adoptable, etc. In Romania, it has been set up now with subsidized by the European Commission, 10 million euros to create a system which tracks every child in the system. And of course, this is hyper dangerous because what they deny, they say the system doesn't take decisions, but of course the system takes decisions because the system is programmed and they move the children through the system. And I have pointed to that already 20 years ago when I used to call this the tracking system, the trafficking system, once by accident in a speech. But in fact, I must say it is what it is. It's a trafficking system because it prepares children to get into the private adoption system where private agencies are taking decisions and are making their money on giving children to other people who have an interest in children for whatever reason. So I would be very, very careful with any kind of data on children, but how to prevent it, if that's the question, and how we can then use the system. I'm not a real expert on that, so I invite anybody else to join in. I quite understood, yeah.
Well, I can say that, I mean, I've worked in social care producing computer systems to monitor it for a long time. And this was prior to getting into this and really seeing the adult social care providers all provide care homes for children. Now, these care homes now have to be registered as companies on Companies House. And I've often wondered, why are they needed to be registered on Companies House when they're not transparent at all in the first place? And the whole object maybe is to count children, like you've suggested, because their remit is that they're only allowed a certain number of children in each care home, and there are thousands of them. I have catalogued a lot of them down to their addresses from various websites that I've got the information off of, and there is so many. I've done 4,000 in 2 months, and there's more than 10,000 of them in this country. And it's phenomenal.
Wow.
Yeah. Do we have any other hands raised? Yeah. Roelie, I was interested as well. Maybe. So was that somebody wanting? Oh, yeah. Joe ahead. Joe, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Roelie, I think you're amazing. You're totally amazing for a start, and you know, keep going, because I think it sounds like to me that we're very much from a local level, and I think my question to you would be, how do we protect our children? How do we challenge these authorities that are decision making? How do we make sure that the child's voice is being captured and heard, and that children are not being lost in a system where they're not really being seen by the authorities and they're not being supported appropriately, and narratives are almost being set which isn't in the best interests of the child? And if you can offer us as a group of people any advice on how to tackle obtaining, because as well we're very closed out in the UK because the courts don't allow us to speak outside of it, so gathering information on case studies is we're very restricted, and I think that is changing, but it's difficult. You feel so isolated. I'm an advocate by profession, and I've been a parental advocate for quite some time within child protection, and I see an all system failure where multi-agencies are working in silos and not coming together, and that is creating a safeguarding and child protection nightmare for our children, basically. And yeah, so that would be my question. Any help or guidance would be greatly appreciated from my perspective. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I do think, I'm in this now since 25 years, and I do see the last year, 2 years, I'm getting a bit more hopeful, because I think that people are connecting more and more on the internet and like now to talk to each other. I mean, in 2014, some parents from the UK were in the Parliament, European Parliament here in Brussels, crying, yelling, screaming because their children were taken away from them. It all was clashed down from higher levels here in Brussels. But I have the feeling that we're now 10 years later. There's another opportunity. People change. There's new European Commission coming up, and as I said before, the UK being out or in, for me, I think it's in a way inseparable, because we live in one world and we have to work together. And I think it's the place to go to see what the new European Commission, the new European Parliament is going to bring, and to all join up and make our voices and by it our voices for our children to speak up and to remind them of the past and what they didn't want to see, and to hope that really there must come change. And I do believe in that. If I didn't believe things could go better, I would have stopped a long time ago. But if we go on long enough, it's also the time to connect, because this is happening in all the EU member states. We just have to take the voice back and to connect on an international level. By chance, because I've worked so long in Brussels, and I have the chance that I speak multiple languages, and I'm in contact with many people, and I hear everywhere the same thing. And we should break down the walls there and have the parents, because to talk together, and the mothers and the fathers, because they are the victims of this system, as well as the children, but they have a voice, and we should speak for the children. I do believe that we just have to continue talking, writing, reading. I wrote, when I became a whistleblower, I wrote an article with a very non-sexy title, The Children's Rights and the European Union. It's not very catchy. I should have done it better at the time. I was too nervous for that, but I invite everybody to read it. It predicts, it kind of shows what is going on, what the bigger voices, bigger strength with what the big people want. And I think if we all just repeat, we will see it clearer. I'm sure now that you realize, you will see the signs of what they are trying to do on a bigger level. And just, in this year, 2024, all work towards one thing and make a very big bang in the EU, which it's the only organization that can stand up to the other powers if they want, and they should. And we did once, and we can do it again. We have to stick to the children's rights and just point out, but that the Hague is nothing. When we were there, Natalie and I and some others, it was so clear. The Hague is it's a small office with 30 people working there, and it thinks it can replace the UN. It's not like that. So I can't give you more clear. I mean, I have no miracle thing to do, but we just have to continue talking and act together.
Renee? Or Joe, and I think you had your hand up before. Did you want to sort of follow up your previous question?
Yeah, I just really, I suppose it was about a lot of the research that I've been reading about gaining the child's voice and how that's done. Yeah. There just doesn't seem to be very much, and when I've looked a bit further into that, a lot of the research I've seen has been in Australia. And it's really difficult because it's not an area of expertise for me. I know things are going badly wrong. I know there's huge difficulties, but yeah, and thank you anyway, because like you say, it is just about connecting. It's about creating some sort of formalized way of getting that voice and taking that to anyone who will listen, basically. So yeah. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, was it Renee who wanted to speak?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi. Who's that? Close my door. Yeah, I just wanted to share that I feel really empowered listening to everyone. I've dipped in and out today. So I haven't listened to it all day. I'm very limited on what I can say, so I'm not really going to go into my story. As we know, like lots of us have got horrendous stories, and I too have one. But because of a gagging order, I won't be able to share. But what I did want to share is something that, like, through my journey of grief, is that I've had to take a lot of responsibility of what I've attracted in my life, and it's made me realize that a lot of the stuff and the situation that I attracted, I take responsibility, so I can also break a lot of ancestral patterns that were following me. So it took me a while to realize that. And through my dance of grief, I've actually come to a place where I've healed a lot of my trauma, but not through my own situation, but it feels like I'm reconnecting with like my mum and certain people, where as I call it, the trauma train separated us, and abuse has followed me and my family. I don't want to say what type of abuse because of my gagging order, but abuse has followed us. And it's got to the point now where I'm reconnecting with my mum, and I'm reconnecting on a deeper level. So although I dance with grief on a daily basis, I try not to stay in that place of pain and grief, because I feel like on an energetic level, this is where they want us to be. And when we live in that place consistently, and I know a lot of us have painful and really difficult stories, but when we live in that place, it's like we become food to them. Many times I've gone back into the court system, and every time I've either gone in as an applicant or a respondent, I felt like my whole soul, like part of me, was being drained. And that was when I was going in and signing up to be an applicant and a respondent. And I would like to find a way how I can be a woman and go in, take into a court, and the courts are set up for us public servants, and go into how they should have been, and not into a family court, but create my own courtroom and go in as a woman and find a way to get it all the stuff that I've gone through heard by a trial by jury. And I feel that until like these courtrooms are closed down and we go back to a natural law, it's really difficult to find a way to work with a system that's already so complicit to so many crimes. Like, how do you fix something without closing it down and restarting something new? I just can't work that out. So, but on an energetic level, I just wanted to share that many years ago, like if we look many years ago, ancient tribes would be tortured by having their children being stolen from the mothers and fathers. Mm-hmm. Now, if we look at that on a frequency level, if you go in and take the children of a tribe, that will bring down the whole frequency within that tribe. Now, if you look at the family courts, where they're geographically set out, they're massive, huge, ugly buildings. If they are going in and stealing children from like whole areas, the frequencies of these areas are going to be at a lower frequency. And everyone, if we are connected with energy and we all are all one, mm-hmm. then that's going to bring down the frequency of the whole people, if that makes sense. So this isn't just the people that are going through the very family court situation. This is a global issue, because the effect that your brother or sister, your neighbor or people are going through is going to have an impact. And until we get the other people to start realizing what we're facing, that's when I feel that we can get the power. Because yeah, lots of us are all going through this, but like for me, so many people, I felt so isolated. Even when I went through it, I felt so isolated. Even my own family had cognitive dissonance to what I went through, because it was too much. So everyone gets on with their little day-to-day lives, but it's like the main essence of like the real pandemic we're facing here right now is when you take a child from a mother and a father and they are in that deep grief, somehow they're changing this energy to like the grief and pain that we're going through. They're feeding from this. There's like, well, I don't know how to name it without sounding weird, but there's something going on. And yeah, I don't know how to change it apart from working on myself. And that's been my biggest gift, is working on myself, because I know the more I work on myself and do my internal work, I'm not their food supply, and I'm getting more and more stronger to the day where I'm ready to take this wherever it is I'm going to take it. Like I said, I don't feel confident taking it back to a family court. I feel like they all need to be closed down. I don't think they're fit for justice. And
is it possible, or if one might believe, that these people are actually narcissistic?
Well,
They are
I think
psychopath.
I was
They
gonna
are.
say Cuba. Yeah.
They are. They it's not normal. It's cruel. I lived in England almost 30 years, and for the last 6 years, when I discover all this, I never been even on Facebook. I had a Russian site where I read my poems, and that was enough. But when I joined Facebook community, and my eyes went, scale of this all, and then I read stories, and in June 2021, I submitted psychiatric and human rights abuse report to the Human Rights Committee. It was never investigated, but it actually proves that system is working at the same script, and I can prove that. And I said this to Human Rights Watch. I can prove that I've been writing for 6 years non-stop. I'm exhausted, absolutely exhausted. After last hearing, I was just sitting. I cannot write. I cannot participate in Facebook or Twitter. I was just sitting and staring out of the window because I felt empty. Because I put so much to prove the point, and I've been not listening. They're not listening. They're not listening. They're not answering questions. They just. I don't know. It's just screwing system.
But isn't that then brings us back to the point where we should be, like people were saying earlier, we're all now joining forces, and to have like us working together now, this is where we're going to get our strength, because how many of us has like fought through this, and is like it's demoralizing, it's traumatizing, and is like, shit, is this really happening? And I kind of like felt like myself, I was like chewed up and spat out, and then next minute I'm going, did that just happen? I'm going, what is this? And it's like, yeah, we all have to join forces, because together we're powerful. But also, how do we get the other people around us to also join forces with us? It's like we're not alone in this. This is a whole world issue, and it's our communities need to have our backs. Our neighbors, our brothers, our sisters need to have our backs. And I think one of the strongest things that I have found that's helped me is healing my trauma, working through all of that, and giving myself time to recover, rather than go back into the fight, which drains me. I've given myself time to recover, and that's been a lot. It's been a bit of like pill to swallow, because I had to sacrifice more time away from. You can imagine what I'm meaning, but I've had to take that time to recover, to stabilize my nervous system, to become the bigger, stronger woman I know I can be. And that's where I feel like sometimes we need to give ourselves a pat on the back as well and go, shit, we were just screwed over big time. And we need to also allow ourselves some self-care, some stop time, because getting into the fight and constantly doing it is exhausting. But like groups like this, I just feel so empowered that this is coming together, and I feel like they're on their way out. This is it now. We're doing it. So I'm just really pleased and really excited that so many of mankind are coming together and saying enough is enough. I feel really like delighted, and whoever's like brought all of this together and made it happen, I'm just really grateful. And for everyone sharing today, and everyone who's gone through their shit stories, I think that our children have been put on this earth for a reason, and those ones that have gone through this shit have also come here to do a bigger life journey. And sometimes if we recognize that, they're on their own journey as well, and they're going to change this stuff. I reckon as our children and their situations, I think they're going to change it.
Could I interrupt you, because we haven't got Roelie for very much longer, and it would be nice.
Well, I'm done anyway. Thank you.
Ask you a couple more questions. I have seen in the chat, is there somebody with their mute off who wouldn't mind remuting themselves, because it's a bit echoey I've seen in the chat that there are people who are present on this call who are either victims or potential victims as adults of the forced adoption of their children, but there are also adults who were adopted as children, and some of them are advocates against adoption, and some of them have been saying in the chat, well, actually, as an adopted child, things turned out okay for me. And I know from the limited experience that I have with the adoptee community that there are both camps. And I just wondered, Roelie, you've been talking with us about international adoption, but international adoption sort of feels kind of like an extension of the domestic adoption industry. And what is your view as somebody who's worked in child protection about adoption? In what circumstances is it okay? That was my question.
Yes, it goes back to children's rights, but there's also different visions on adoption. So in the UK, you have adoption as part of child protection. In the Netherlands, where I come from, and in most countries in Europe, we don't have that. Adoption in the Netherlands is only for children who are foundlings or children who are relinquished at birth, but not from child protection. It's not from foster care. Child protection is, in fact, to raise children until they're adults, and then, but not to change their identity and to make them become somebody else, and to especially in inter-country adoption. Many adoptees are also saying now that they see it as a modern form of slavery, that they have to become somebody's child, which they are not. And you have to act like this child, and that your rights from the country are being taken away. Your identity is changed, your language is changed, your religion is changed, and it's irreversible. While child protection and being a child is a temporary situation, because if all goes well, you become an independent adult. From a child rights perspective, countries can decide themselves whether they want to have national adoption or not. International adoption is a different issue. In the UNCRC, it was said it's a very last resort if a country wants to do it, only and really only if there's no way at all to raise a child in country, either through foster care, through national adoption, in a residential institution for as long as it takes. The Hague Convention changes that. It says foster care and residential care can only be a very short period of time, very limited in time. And what happens then, and that I've seen in Romania, of course, what happens if rich foreign agencies come to a poverty-stricken country with lots of with a chaotic history? Either such countries just come from war, they recover, or they had an internal crisis or a war. And so in Romania, there's the end of communism and a weak state. And then all these foreign institutions come in, and they place the children with their own foster carers, which they pay 3 times the normal amount of money, and they give a present here, and you can get a little trip there, and whatever. So there's lots of advantages for the people in the child protection system, small or big. And then all of a sudden things start to change. So there's no working towards reintegration into the family anymore. It's just keeping the parents away because this child is interesting to go abroad, because this child is blue eyes, blonde or anything, or it's very young, So you start to see it changes the behavior of the child protection people locally. It's what I describe in an article. You can Google it. The perverse effects of the Hague Adoption Convention. So apart from if children feel okay after their adoption or not, which is of course a very personal issue, what we see is that it takes very often 40, 50, perhaps 60 years before people realize what adoption did to them, because there's all kind of loyalty conflicts are possible with adoptive parents and with seeing, you know, what really has happened. But apart from what's the effect on children, we have to look at what's the effect on the child protection system and what's the effect on families, because a child can be very happily adopted, but there's also a family involved who's missing a child.
So how is this going to work then when a social worker has corrupted all the registers for that person's identity? They go to an adoptive family, they then go and do a DNA test, and it can't even find the basics information because the social worker has screwed all of the documents up.
Oh yes, very,
and I
very
know this is
nicely.
actually happening.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but this is exactly the problem, that everything can be corrupted. And if you start in such a system where we change the identity of people, yeah, it's also, imagine this, there's also no supervision at all. So a child A goes to another country under a different identity, but nobody's checking whether it ever arrives or whether it goes to school. The children can go massively missing. If you change their identity, you become untraceable. Right? So it carries all kind of risks, and it's, of course, it's the dream of those who want children for abuse, for whatever abuse.
But the problem is, when this situation happens, the parents can't even tell whether their children are alive or dead.
No,
because
exactly.
the law protects these people doing this. So
Yes.
if I'm trying to find out if my daughter is alive or dead, I cannot even establish that basic fact, which is crazy.
Yes, and I take it a step further. I'm now I am being contacted a lot by adult adoptees who are looking for their parents, and so they go back to Romania and they try to find out, and then they finally they hear your mother is dead. If you hear that, you want the confirmation. You want to know where she's buried. You want to see the paperwork, because everybody lies in this system. But then they're told, but your mother is no longer your mother. So you don't have a right, privacy. And your mother's dead, she can no longer agree. So it's this, where you think, hello, anybody home? So yes, but I think that, yeah, we're at really the crossroad where either we kill the system now, or it continues in a even more evil way with all the AI and all the systems we're going to have, or we really kill it now. And I think it is possible if we all stand up and all stick together and all learn from each other.
Well, I can see that some of these agencies are stepping off the cliff because they're going the same way as what has been done in the past. The laws are not changing. I mean, in Ireland, they cannot change the law since 2017 because there's no damn executive. So it's not even keeping up with current UK law. So the children there are ripe for any form of adoption because of the fact that there's no legal representation to even protect them, all their rights.
Yeah, and this is, of course, not of course, but I see it everywhere. So from Portugal, sorry. From what we hear, the children were available for intercountry adoption, not children from migrants, refugees, where people are sent back to their country, but the children are kept and are then sent for adoption somewhere in Europe. I just read the decision from the Dutch Ministry of Justice why they are reopening adoption from Bulgaria again. And they're actually writing, yeah, there are many Bulgarians who go and work in other European countries, and they leave their children with relatives, family members. And sometimes they place them then, those family members, in child protection. So if they can't find then the parents in Europe within a certain amount of time, like 6 months, the children are made adoptable in Bulgaria for 6 months, and then they can be on the international list. So you go abroad to earn money for your family, and you come back and your children are gone. And you can't trace, and you have no right to know anything. I mean, this is like, I don't know. If I hadn't followed all this for 25 years, I wouldn't believe it.
I mean, I've been in this 12 years and I can't believe what I'm seeing. So I can only imagine, really, what you have and what you can tell us. Because, to be honest, I think you've done a fantastic job with your life. And if I could do half of what you could do in the time that you've done it, I would be very proud of myself. And to be honest, I cannot still believe that we cannot physically get basic information in this country, whether someone is alive or dead. This is fundamental, surely. And as a child, how can a parent not be told whether their child is dead or alive? You know, this then begs the question of how many other children are buried in car parks in Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland, because of the fact that we are not getting to the whole point of the situation.
I've got a copy of Roelie's book here. I didn't manage to get very far into it yet because it's intense. It's her diary from when she took her post. And
an ISBN.
I will pop the link to in Amazon and in the chat. It's like you're just pounded by, oh my God, you know, shocking moments. And one of the things that was really interesting to me as well was how I've got a book here, actually written by the same woman that is talking about, who admitted that the Hague Adoption Convention on inter-country adoptions was written with the specific intent of undermining the Convention on the Rights of the Child. Yeah. The book,
oh wow, you have it.
Yes, it's America's economic diplomacy, and I think that you saw a fair amount of how diplomacy, economic and otherwise, has actually caused this international system that we're seeing today.
Yeah. Mm. Can you show that book again? Because I'd be interested in it.
Let me, I'll put it here, but I'll pop it in the chat right now. Whoops, my computer's running really slow, so it's hard for me to type.
Or I can do it if you want, because you're. Let me put in the details later. Really, no problem. Then you're busy managing.
Yeah. It's a real eye-opener. Who else has got any questions? I know, Nicolette, you were trying to ask a question earlier, but we had only just started. You've got your hand down now, but do you have anything that you'd like to? Julia, would you like to go ahead?
You know, I was just wondering if we are looking at the beginning of a time.
Do you hear me?
Nicolette, could you just give Julia one moment, because she just started.
I won't be long. Whether we're looking at a time when children and their parents are going to be separated, because it's as if, first of all, we'll create a situation where that can easily be done to anybody who disagrees with the state or social care. But is that just the beginning? You know, is there some kind of plan to rear children separately away from their families? Because it sort of feels a bit like that.
I've got a feeling, my personal take on it, that really, and other people might have a different take, is that this is a perfect storm caused by the rampant privatization of everything, you know, in children's social care, and the lack of regulation, and also the undemocratic way that the NGOs and lobbies work and influence public policy and undermine the law without the knowledge of the public. So for me, it's about that rather than some sort of evil master plan to, you know, transhumanism and, you know, depopulation. Although sometimes it really does feel like that, and I don't know.
Yes, it does feel like that, and I also sort of agree with Natalie that it's just also the economics. If you see that hedge fund bankers and big investors are very much pushing this agenda, these agendas of the NGOs, it's also because this social services is an enormous growth market, which has hardly any limit if you push it for it. So it's also a money-making machine, and I think that's yeah, that is likely mostly pushing all this, and of course the people who have a need for children. So there are couples and parts of society who cannot have their own children, and they are pushing for these options to get children for themselves, and that leads them to a market and a big business. So I don't see any other conspiracies or whatever. This is just real life, which pushes since so many years children as commodities.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of, is it right for me to talk or no?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry, so we had Nikki who wanted to ask.
Right.
Sorry, we jumped over Nikki. I'm so sorry.
Yes, I wanted to, hello Roelie, you are so fantastic. I just wanted to tell to all of you that today or yesterday, Reem Al-Salam posted a new call for France, that France is once again giving the custody of children away from mothers to incestuous fathers who are sexually raping the children. And so, Natalie, it is now confirmed again by your rapporteur, Reem Al-Salam, that France has a profound problem, that the family court in France is still giving custody of the child to the child rapist pedophile father. So, and I said to Natalie that my research shows profoundly that the Hague Child Abduction Convention has been pushed by France very strongly in order to force back children to France who were fleeing with their mothers into other countries, because France is systematically giving custody to pedophile fathers. So Natalie wanted that I speak about this tomorrow concerning the Hague. But what I found through my research, and I want to ask Roelie what you think, we have been talking about this, that the Hague Child Abduction Convention, which is the basis of European Union law, Brussels II regulation and the new recast, is literally producing children for the state care, because it coerces mothers to stay in a poor country. So you cannot, if you live in Romania, Bulgaria, Hungary, you cannot move abroad with your child to have a better life. You are doomed to fail in a poor country when the father is not paying. So literally, I think everything is connected, and the Hague Child Abduction Convention is producing children for the social care who are taken into care, and then it's producing adoptable children on the longer run.
Yeah. So
I think it is all connected. The Hague Child Abduction Convention is coercing mothers, primary carers all over the world, and especially in Europe, into unbearable situations.
Yes,
into poverty.
If I may add something, thank you, Nicoletta, for bringing that up. What I would like to add, just for those interested, years ago, 20 years ago, the Hague Conventions on Children were put illegally on the list of European laws as being the basis for policy making. I had those conventions removed at the time, and in 2010 again. So, and in my view, when twice things go wrong, that's not a coincidence. That's an act which is willingly been done. There are forces who are putting these conventions as EU law while it's not, and so this is sort of the highest form of crime, I think, to replace democratically drafted conventions by this kind of special interest conventions, which promote the abduction and the adoption of children in a way. So just for those who are interested, it goes a lot further, the crime.
I think it's like a tunnel system. The Hague Child Abduction Convention, the Adoption Convention, the Hague Child Protection Convention. These are, I think, like power tunnels under the acquis communautaire and sabotaging, I mean, fundamental rights and safety.
Yeah, it's undermining, the word Natalie used before, exactly. It's undermining children's rights, and it's undermining families.
And human rights, and also I think the whole aim of the EU is undermined through this convention. It's like an underlying tunnel system from which you launch child abduction proceedings, care proceedings, the adoption proceedings, which could never take place otherwise.
Yeah, it's against the basic European values. Some MEPs, some members of the European Parliament have said that before. It's undermining. It's not in line with the EU values, and
the rights of neither.
Yeah, and human rights. Voilà. Exactly. Totally agree.
Thank you so much. I so much appreciate your work, and it's so uplifting to connect the dots, I think. And I'm so pleased. And now that Rima Salem also spoke up against pedophilia problem in France, this shows us, Natalie, doesn't it, that our research concerning the Hague Child Abduction Convention, that is literally coercing mothers into an unbearable situation, where they must remain, where the state is not protecting children from pedophile fathers.
Yeah. I sort of see it as well as a sort of legal layer of legislation that sort of disrupts the legal order. It almost feels like a sort of network of tunnels for literally trafficking children.
Yes, it's terror, legal terror. It's called legal terrorism.
Yeah, mothers and children who are trying to escape from abuse. Yeah. Their pet families who are trying to escape from terrorism by the state, with unlawful child protection and adoption proceedings against.
And now, just a moment, I'm getting another book.
And then there is as well the surrogacy issue, which the Hague are working on to try to legalise the surrogacy industry, as they so helpfully call it, very transparently. It's nice to know that children are, in very literal terms, a commodity.
I mean, Anke already from Australia, Anke already highlighted to us, Natalie, if you remember, that they are getting through surrogacy children who can be prostituted from a very early age. So so we should not forget that children are not adopted and not produced through surrogacy necessarily for benevolent reasons. Not everybody wants to have children for a nice purpose, for family.
There are very few checks on surrogate parents. Roelie, were you going to show us something?
Yes, I was just for those who like reading, and now that you used the word terrorism. I think last year or 2 years ago, this book came out, and I bought it, which is called "Taking Children: A History of American Terror." And it really shows you throughout the history how taking children is a policy to undermine societies, countries, and it has several chapters. I keep saying that there's one chapter missing. That's a chapter about Eastern Europe, but it tells the story of taking first black children, then taking native children, taking children in Latin America, criminalizing families of color, taking the children of refugees, and it's really a whole story of which the US, with the help of NGOs, is enforcing on our societies too. And it's something I've been saying for a long time, and I'm always happy that other people then write books about it, so that I'm not, sometimes I'm too careful and to say things so harsh, but it is absolutely, history and proven that this is, terror.
Yeah.
What is the title again, the book?
I've put it in the chat, Nicolette.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all. That's really.
This is exactly what I said at the end of my report. It is terrorism. It is terrorism.
Yeah.
Can I say something before I've got to go? Sorry, I'm just needing to go. On the backhand of what Roelie said about the people who've written this book, and I don't know how, I'd be interested to read that, but like before we entered these occult times, we from what I'm my own knowledge and what I'm gaining is that We were the imaginary people, and we've got the power of thought. And I feel that a lot of these people within the industry are just puppets, and that there's something above them probably controlling their thought. But if these books are all written, like a lot of these books are written, how do we know that these books are written to create the very thing that they're now creating? So if we take that back and empower ourselves, if we start writing our future, how we see this closing down, how we want it to happen, we collectively can co-create with the power of everyone's thought, the very closure of the thing that they've written, they wanted to open and manifest in today's society, what we're seeing. So they've written this many years ago, and they've created it through the power of their thought. Well, if we take back the power of our thought, we can rewind all of that, close it down, and we can write what we want to see. So I'm just putting that out there, because we have got the power. We've got the power of our own thought. We've just been tricked, and through the amount of intergenerational trauma, we've become numb. We've become mutated as human beings. Let's just take back the power of our thought. We got it. So I'm happy to like co-create this with all of you. And I do have to go, but I just wanted to say that one other thing is history is history. But one of the biggest things that we could do from today is write our own history for our own families. And I'm writing my own family book, which is the real history, what I've gone through. And therefore, that is real history. I think so much we've been told and programmed as history is bullshit. And therefore, we're living on the premise of something that isn't real. If we take back the history of our own families, we can write it for our future generations. We can write this stuff, what we've gone through, write it for our own family books. And this could empower our children, and to not go down the same trickery. Like, how many of us, I knew, if I would have known in hindsight, I wouldn't have stepped forward into those courts. I wouldn't have even given away my power in the first place, but I just didn't know it. So yeah, just putting that out there, because we could write our history from today, and it's going to be true to our families, what we've experienced, and therefore it's real. None of this facade, it is real stuff. So enjoy the rest of your evening, everybody, and I look forward to seeing you a little bit tomorrow, but I have to go now.
Bye, Renee. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Cheers. Bye.
Mm-hmm. I know Julia's had her hand up for quite a while. Would you like to? We've just got a couple more minutes before we come to 5:30.
Sorry, that's the legacy hand. But thank you very much, everybody. It's been brilliant. I'm still here, but I'll vanish. I'll put my mute on. Thanks.
That's all right. Yeah, Roelie, thank you so much for your time. I hope that it's been okay. I know that the life of a whistleblower isn't easy, and that it's had a very real impact on your personal resources of all kinds. So we're so grateful for you to come and have this chat with us, and I hope it's been okay for you. I hope you're not too tired.
Can I ask one question?
Sorry.
How can we support you? How can I support you, Roelie? You're amazing. I mean, you're absolutely just amazing, and to no other words to describe it. You know, what can we do as individuals to make it easier for you?
Thank you. Thanks for the questions. Very kind. Well, I think what we're doing now, connect on LinkedIn, connect on Twitter, or X, whatever it's called nowadays. Share the stories, give each other the like and thumb up, and I am preparing lots of actions again towards the Commission. There are other adoptees helping me. I think just keep this subject going and support each other. Really little things, like I said, on social media. That's, I think, the strongest one can do nowadays, really. Perhaps later on, when we're in a further stage, I don't know, perhaps when there's the new commission or new parliament, write a letter or hand in a petition or whatever. There are lots of opportunities, and let's stay in touch. And
who should we write to? This is the problem. In the UK, I'm running out of things I'm running out of people to write to.
Yeah, no, that's what I think. I think we should really the next. I hope. Well, no, I hope. I don't know what to hope anymore. But I mean, the world is changing, and there will be a new European Parliament and new Commission, and I hope that they perhaps have a more open ear to the situation, and so then we should see who gets there. These people now are all going out. They're not going to change the world anymore, unfortunately. So I wouldn't know to whom to write now, because they haven't done anything positive in my case, or for the children, I would say, all these years. So we have to wait and see who's the next lot to write to. But we'll stay in touch.
I mean, I never got very far with the European Union. I had a thing that was supposed to be a list of all my correspondence on it, and when I wrote to them, nothing ever appeared on it. And I don't know what went wrong, why it didn't actually do what it was supposed to do. But I thought the whole point was to construct a list of all the documents you've sent in, so that they could look at it as a whole, and it just none of it worked.
Well, it's we could talk about it later. I mean, I really it's the last commissions have been on the issue of children's rights a real disaster. As Natalie also knows, that we get letters which are like surreal, and it's all been dealt with just a few people. It's a very kind of weird network which is working at the interior, and I can only hope that we will break them one day with complaining, because there's also the European Ombudsman, who has done nothing at all either in a positive way on this issue. But I'm just praying for change in the power structure, and that they have to listen to us.
I mean, Roelie, I'm happy to write with what I know to anybody. So if you want support, you've got my support, okay? And if there's anything I can do, I will do it for you, okay?
Great. Let's stay in touch and connect, and yes, just only by working hard and staying positive and continuing to believe that we can achieve something will bring about change. I don't want to sound naive, but we have to just stay strong and believe in it, because then one day it will become true.
Roelie, you can come tomorrow, maybe when Natalie and I making a discussion about the Hague Child Abduction Convention.
Yes, I'd love to. Yes,
I would love to discuss. It would be an honor if you could come. I think it will be 11:30 UK time, Natalie.
That's right.
So it's 12:30 Brussels or Amsterdam time.
Perfect.
I would be very grateful if you could join us, because your work is such an inspiration.
Thank you.
Incredible.
To do that, I will now leave you all, because I have.
Thank you.
And I might join in later a bit. And in any case, tomorrow I will join in and see you all again. Thank you all for being there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Natalie.
Yes.
What do you think? I have sent to you, and I posted it also on Twitter, that UN rapporteur Reem Al-Salem is also going now forward against pedophile problems at the family court in France. So it strengthens our argument concerning the Hague, that it was originally meant also to protect pedophile fathers.
Yes, I think that is relevant, this issue. I think in the talks we've had previously, I touched upon the 3 pillars of money, ideology, and abuse. And there's a lot of abuse in the background, whether we're talking about the international, family law, or domestic as well. I can see we've got one other person with their hand raised, and I think maybe we ought to take a break, because it's a long day. Go and get something to eat. Was it Benadze? Barizade, you had your hand up. Do you want to speak? I'm so sorry. I was just aware that Roelie is quite probably tired after.
Yeah, I wanted. I don't know whether Roelie has left.
But never mind.
I wanted to ask her permission if I can share her story with my group. I belong to a group of child protection practitioners, frontline child protection practitioners, and her story It's a very, very touching one.
Yeah.
And we occasionally have group supervision, and one of the groups that I belong to is over 200 frontline practitioners. And different groups like that. I was wondering if we can share that, if I can share with my colleagues, so to improve how we respond to families that are going through difficult circumstances such as hers. Hello,
Yeah.
I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's why I put my hands up.
Yeah, I would like to answer. Please contact us at Family Court Crisis email, and we can either try to give you the information that you need or put you in touch with Roelie.
I already have it.
Great.
Yeah, I think one of the I personally as a frontline child protection practitioner, we deal with families who have autistic children, and their needs vary because they're on different levels on the spectrum. And I also have I've also experienced challenges in terms of resources, and as a parent myself, sometimes torn between being on same level with families and advocating for them, and at the same time fighting the system when it comes to releasing funds or resources. You can only, sometimes I don't want to say much due to some. I don't want to say much, but it can be tough at times. And being a parent myself, and who have gone through some personal challenges that drive me to advocate for families, and even those that have been through the family court system. And so I get it. And I'm happy to be here with this community to see how we can all work together to challenge the system, because at the end of the day it boils down to the system. There are some policies that make social work practice very, very difficult, and social workers don't make decisions. Yeah, as social workers do have the opportunity to effect change by working well with families, making sure that children's voices are heard, making sure that even the children who cannot speak, making sure that those needs are addressed and their voices, whether they can speak or not, are heard by working closely with the families and parents. And it's important as well for parents to have trust with frontline practitioners, and be able to emphasize on their needs and what they want to see, what they want what they want the system to do for them. That is very important. Thank you.
I mean, thank you, Barisa. I mean, I'm not saying that all social workers are doing these heinous acts, but some of them are, and there are some good ones out there as well, and I've met them. So, and I know some of them are trying to, in fact, change as well. And to be honest, it's good to hear that you want to hear from everybody as well. But one of the biggest questions that I want to know is, are these children alive? Because why can't we even find out if they're dead or alive? This is just a crazy world that we have with information rights that just stop us from getting any basic information.
Yeah, I don't know whether she's still here, but absolutely. I think there are certainly people in the system who are good, or at least there are some of them left, and would like to change things. See things working better, but life seems very, very difficult for them right now. Shall we take a break? and come back at 7. And those of you who can, I would really encourage you to do so, because we're going to be talking to an American author who understands very well how the networks function that built the private family law industry. That's the Association of Family and Conciliation Courts, and what the funding streams are behind that, and you know, how that is impacting child safety. So she'll be with us. And then the final session at 8:30 tonight is another American citizen researcher who's looking closely at the impacts of outsourcing onto public services, which are literally leading to situations that we're seeing in the UK as well and across Europe. Somebody touched on it earlier about displaced children, unaccompanied minors who are being trafficked, and sometimes just because of the most stupid reasons, really, of people who are impacted by time crunches and budget crunches and unable to do their job properly, even though they'd like to. So that's at 8:30, and that'll be our final session tonight. So if you don't mind, folks, we'll have a break now, because I need to get something to eat.
Can I just have a point of fact, just to check the correctness? My family and myself have never had any involvement of social services taking our children at all. I am first generation of this disgusting situation, and quite frankly, what I've seen of it is deplorable. My family have never had anything like this in it at all, and I think this whole situation is now starting to affect everyone, which I think they need to be more aware of, and this is why I'm trying to raise public awareness about this.
Absolutely. I think that's why we're all here, and that is something we can achieve together. Thank you. Okay, folks, intermission time. I'll go on mute if you want to. You can stay on the call with your cameras on mute and your mics. We'll be back at 7 o'clock. And yeah, and Shona, yes, I agree. It's really important. You know, it's now or never, really. If it gets too bad, we might find the situations irreparable. So I think that a lot of it have had enough. A lot of us have had enough of all sorts of things. Oh yeah, let me put Roelie's Twitter profile in here. Okay, hang on a minute. I know it by heart because she's very important to me. She watches all sorts of things going on across Europe. I'm fairly sure that's it. And I'll find the link. Oh, here we go. Yeah, she's been working at some of these things for years, and only now are they coming to fruition. And I think many of us feel that there is a sort of definite shift in the energy at the moment. And yeah, thank you everybody for coming. If you're going to be dropping off for today, we really appreciate you joining us, and we see you tomorrow whenever you're able. And yeah, remember, I'm going to pop in once again that link if you want to stay in touch, continue meeting up, take this work forward, spend more time, receive updates from us. Just fill in this form and we can keep in touch with you with your permission. Thank you very much, everybody. See you later.
Thank you. Thank you. I will try to today. I will not come to the meeting tomorrow. I will try. Thank you very much. It was nice to see you all, and it was nice to have a chat. Thank you.
Lovely to see you as well.
Yeah. Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.